Hello and welcome to episode 9 of the We'll Bring the Popcorn Entertainment Podcast. I'm Brad, this is Josh, and March is starting off with some pretty big shows and films.
Yeah, we've got a lot to get into in this episode. We'll be talking about the first 2 episodes of FX and Hulu's Shogun, as well as episode 7 of Masters of the Air, and we'll also be getting into our review of Dune Part 2. In my opinion, the first big blockbuster film of 2024, so there's a lot to get into.
Yep.
But we do want to kind of start on a little bit of a down note. We recently had the passing of comedian Richard Lewis at the age of 76. One of our favorite roles that he did was Prince John in Robin Hood Men in Tights. I know that's a film we both love. It's one of our comfort movies that we like to watch, just to make us laugh. It'll make us laugh every time.
So good, so funny. It still stands up to this day.
It really does.
Just Mel Brooks' stuff is just almost timeless, even though it is very situational to the times, but it still stands up so great. And he was so good playing off of Carrie and playing off of Roger and all that. They had such a great dynamic in that it just made that movie so much fun. And he's been in a ton of stuff, but yeah, I will always remember him for that role.
For sure. And, he was really good in Curb Your Enthusiasm as well, that you and I both like. It's one of our favorite TV shows. Just a brilliant actor, a funny man, and our condolences go out to him and his family and friends, and just another actor gone too soon.
Absolutely. So moving into kind of our regular news here, we have 2 different bits of news about Spider-Man 4. So Thomas Haden Church, in a recent interview, was talking about the Sony Universe Spider-Man 4, that he believes that Sam Raimi and Tobey Maguire will eventually get back together here and bring us a 4th film in theirs. He also mentioned he would absolutely come back, which I would all be for. We know with Sam Raimi's Spider-Man 3, it wasn't exactly what he wanted to do with that film, with having Venom and other things thrown in on him. So it would be interesting to see if Marvel and Sony give him the leeway to do a Spider-Man 4 as he wanted to do.
Yeah, absolutely. And, anything we could do to kind of steer that ship back away from what Spider-Man 3 was, in my opinion. I mean, outside of, I don't know if you would necessarily enjoyed emo dancing Peter Parker, but, the first 2 films I absolutely loved. The third one was just kind of meh, but I mean, the fact that they're open to the possibility of doing the 4th one, I think it was awesome how, Sam Raimi's dove into making his own MCU project with Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness, and then Spider-Man No Way Home really bringing back, not only Andrew Garfield, but Tobey Maguire in the Spider-Man films, kind of giving them their flowers a little bit to the modern day audience. I'm excited about the possibilities of them possibly doing a 4th Spider-Man film and what that would look like, what type of story they could tell. I'm all for it, because you know me, I love Spider-Man, and I'll take Spider-Man any way I can get it. But I would love to see that. I wouldn't even hate seeing Andrew Garfield getting another crack at a 3rd Spider-Man film for himself too, just to kind of put a nice bow on his time as Spider-Man too. But this is it's cool. It's good news.
It'd be fun to see Marvel kind of do some offshoot multiverse stories at either a series, limited time series, or a spinoff movie where we get, Amazing Spider-Man 3, we get Spider-Man 4, get one last tales of those, because we kind of already somewhat have knowledge, even though we still know very little, that Secret Wars seems to be a send-off to a lot of these previous Fox and Sony Marvel characters, but it would still be nice to see Andrew get that time to finish off his story, give Toby one last chance to finish off his, could bring back Kirsten Dunst and everybody else, and let them kind of have one last hurrah and ride off into the sunset for the last time.
Yeah, I'm all for it. It's these are films that we grew up on loving, and just to give them a proper send off, I'm all for it. But to kind of pivot that a little bit to like, well, where does that leave Spider-Man for the current MCU? It's been kind of talked about that they're willing to bring in Miles Morales in the next iteration of the MCU Spider-Man, which is a long time coming, in my opinion. They've kind of danced around it. I would love to see who they wind up casting for this, but getting Miles Morales in there, and he can kind of take that baton from Tom Holland, who, as you're aware, is kind of openly said that he's been hesitant to sign on to do more Spider-Man films. Not that he's against it necessarily, but I think he's kind of at that point in his career where he wants to pivot and work on some stuff that may not take as much of his time or involve him, putting his body through what he has to physically be able to do that role. And handing it off to somebody playing Miles Morales, who you've seen with the success of, the video games and the Into the Spider-Verse movies. Like, I'm all for a live action Miles Morales.
I'd love to see Miles in live action. And yeah, it'd be a good way to transition in a good way. You're not recasting Peter Parker or anything. You bring in Miles. You can still have, if Tom Holland wants to pop up in little cameos and bit roles, but you can have Miles take over with a fresh actor who can run it for the next several years, maybe even be a part of the Young Avengers that you see is coming. Like it could be a good way to give him a stopping point, but still be available while letting someone else, bring some new life into Spider-Man.
Yeah, it's exciting times because it's something that's starting to get a lot of traction among fans, right? Fans are starting to really clamor to get that character into these films now, especially with how well like we've said, the animated films have done. And, Miles is, you talk about a second Spider-Man, but nobody ever thought it would really work. But the way they've written this Miles Morales character and introduced him and, all the comics and all that stuff, he's gotten very popular very quickly. So the fact that they're starting to capitalize on it, it's pretty exciting.
Yep. Talking about another comic property, we have Superman Legacy is now filming, but we've come to find out now it's just titled Superman. So on Superman Day, James Gunn gave us the very first look at the chest of Superman, just a very tight shot, allowing us to see the symbol, which does reflect the Kingdom Come Superman logo. So it's got the regular color scheme. The Kingdom Come was black and red. This has the regular color scheme, so it's kind of going to be interesting to see what they take of the Kingdom Come storyline. Of what I can remember, it's kind of an older Superman. This one is supposed to be a younger Superman. So is it just using that crest style, or are we going to see any of the actual story from Kingdom Come into it? But it just started filming, and we even got Wendell Pierce has joined the cast as Perry White. So I think the cast is just about rounded out, and with filming happening now, it's going to be exciting to see how James Gunn does Superman.
Yeah, there's a lot of eyes on DC now with James Gunn taking over to kind of see, like, he's kind of laid out his roadmap of what he wants to do. Now you're starting to see some of that start filming, some of that start taking shape. And it'll be interesting to see what that looks like once we start getting, trailers and news that comes out from all the different projects that are going on and starting to be worked. So I'm optimistic, given his track record, that it's in good hands. But he's got a lot of work to do to win back people for DC, because the DC name is pretty tarnished, at least in the eyes of regular film viewers. You know what I mean? So there's a lot of work to do there. Hopefully, this changing of the guard leads to better stories and, gets people back into these types of properties that we all love, right? Superman's a national treasure at this point, so it's interesting to see what they adapt from the Kingdom Come story. Like you said, they've already started filming. I'm looking forward to see what comes out of it for sure.
Yes, it's kind of big that they're starting the rejuvenation of DC films with Superman, because under the last DC universe, we basically got one main Superman film, which was Man of Steel, and then it was Batman versus Superman, Justice League. So there was really only one standalone Superman film that we got with Henry Cavill. Of course, we got all the others, but starting off with Superman is a pretty big deal to do that.
Some say put your best foot forward, so we'll see what they're doing with that. I'm excited. I'm excited to see it. It looks like they've got a good cast put together for it. And we'll just see what comes out of it. We just we're kind of playing the waiting game at this point.
Yeah, next July, the loaded July of next year is going to be insane for a movie going.
So much stuff coming out next year. It's crazy. Keeping in the DC theme though, we've got Justice League Crisis on Infinite Earth Part 3. Which is the animated film. It is going to be the last appearance of Kevin Conroy as Batman, and also the last appearance of Mark Hamill as the voice of the Joker. So Mark Hamill has said that he doesn't want to do the Joker without, Kevin Conroy at this point. But, man, you want to talk about a fitting end for just an iconic voice pairing duo and how good those two play off of each other. How do you feel about it?
Right in the feels in the childhood of knowing that, with losing Kevin, we knew he recorded some things. We got his voice, I believe, in the Suicide Suicide Squad kills the Justice League game. Words are hard, people.
They are.
And then we heard some other things we weren't exactly sure. So it's nice to get the confirmation that he will be Batman and Bruce. Because for those of us who were born, grew up in the 80s and 90s, Batman the Animated Series was a pinnacle. Like, I still think it stands up so well.
Really good.
Today, his Batman and Bruce were fantastic. Of course, Mark Hamill's Joker was insane. And to know that Kevin gets one last go as Batman and that he's being joined by Mark Hamill as Joker is... I can't wait to hear them together again. It's something new because I think really the last time they both were together was at the Arkham series games.
It may have been, yeah.
That I think was the last time we really heard their voices together. So that's been a little bit.
Yeah, it's exciting. I'm excited to see the film when it does drop. It's kind of the end of an era for that, obviously. Kevin Conroy will always be, one of, if not the best iteration of Batman in some people's opinions. And like you said, Batman the Animated Series is my favorite animated series of all time. So it's very fitting end to one hell of a run that those guys have had for the better part of 30 years playing the voices of these characters. So I'm excited to see the proper send-off that they get.
Yep.
For sure.
Now, moving on to the latest reboot of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles and Mutant Mayhem, the sequel has gotten a date. So October 9th, 2026, we can look forward to seeing that sequel. But in between now and then, we do know that we have a series coming from as well, because they mentioned, I think, video games, TV series, and then more in the movie. So we've got the movie date now. Now we need to start finding out more about the series.
Yeah, I'm excited for that too, because if you go back in our previous episodes where we talk about our top films of 2023, I put Mutant Mayhem up there. It was a surprise. It was a surprise hit for me as somebody who loves the Ninja Turtles for as long as I have. It was a fun, fresh take of them as actual teenagers kind of venturing out into the world, right? So seeing the next step in that development for those characters and that style is going to be a lot of fun. That first film was great. I'm excited to see the TV show. Want to see the video games that come out of it. All the stuff that's hopefully going to keep everything connected and progressing as, not only the voice actors get older, because they were genuine teenagers that played the voices of these characters, and just to see them progress through their life as well. Just it's gonna be a ton of fun. But I'm glad we've got a little bit of confirmation on when that film's coming out, because those take quite a bit to put together. I don't think people truly understand or appreciate how long it takes to make an animated film like that. It's not one of those, can do it in, 3 months and it's done. Like, that takes a lot of time and effort to put those films together. Like, I don't think people understand, like, from the time that project gets started till the time it gets done, just the amount of time and manpower and work and blood, sweat, and tears that goes into making these types of films. And, obviously I want to give those people their flowers, because they work incredibly hard to put, these types of things together. And it's going to be fun to watch when it finally comes out.
Yep. Yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing how they continue to build this Mutant Mayhem universe with all the different properties. And the second film should be a whole lot of fun. So 2026 is going to be a good time.
Yeah, absolutely. We're looking forward to that. And we'll keep everybody posted on news as we see it as well. So that's one we're definitely looking forward to. Another film I'm looking forward to is Bad Boys 4. Bad Boys 4 was announced today that it's got a release date of June 7th of this year. So it was moved up a week from the previous announced June 14th date, I believe. And now it's going head-to-head with The Crow, which is going to be kind of a interesting battle at the box office. I'm kind of surprised that they moved it straight up to compete with a film like that. Typically, a lot of these studios give each other a week to kind of put their stuff out, and then we're coming in behind you. There's not a ton of that direct competition anymore for audience views, but like, I don't know. I'm a little torn on why they moved it up. Do you have an opinion on that?
Yeah, I'm not sure either, because it seemed to be announced right after we got our first still images from The Crow of seeing Bill as the main character, of seeing him as the Crow. But we were both mixed and had the same kind of reaction, that we got very much Jared Leto Joker vibes from the look of his Crow. Like, Bill is a fantastic actor.
Absolutely.
He nails pretty much everything he's been in so far. But if that's the first look you're giving with, instead of the long hair, you've kind of got a shaved mullet-esque type look. You've got the tattoo look that looks more Joker, Jared Leto Joker than it does the Crow. So it's it's very interesting to see. Maybe they thought, well, hey, this is an opportunity. People are pretty mixed. Maybe we can get them to start talking about Bad Boys 4, and we'll take both weeks instead of, just leaving them to have a week and then we'll go. So never really sure on what gets them to want to go up and against another film, because I think that week of June 14th, they were kind of alone in that week when it came to big movies. And Crow it's got that cult classic following to it. So I don't know if you're going to call that a huge summer movie, other than past those from, the 80s and 90s who remember Brandon Lee and everything else vividly. Did they not see it as much competition, and they decided they were going to move up and give them a little more breathing room for a potential big blockbuster in Bad Boys 4, because all of the others have performed rather well.
Yeah, and it's just interesting to see the thought process that goes into that too also. But like you said, the images of Bill Skarsgård as the Crow, it does give that Jared Leto Joker vibe for sure. And maybe it's genius marketing on their point to get people talking, but it could be both good and bad, right? So now you have this image, and I've seen a lot of discourse in both directions, right? So there's some people that think it's very exciting and they're looking forward to it, and other people are like, automatic no, we know how we feel about Jared Leto Joker, which isn't necessarily fair to the film necessarily, because the film could still be brilliant, like you said. I'm excited for the trailer just to see what the film's actually gonna look like, because to your point, it is a big cult following, and I think it's gonna do really well either way. But how does the footage look? How does the film look? How is he being presented? Does it keep that dark? It looks like it's got that dark aesthetic still. So I'm excited to see what they put out to kind of drum up that interest a little bit more. Like you said, an image can both help and hurt a film, but hopefully soon we'll get some kind of trailer to be like, okay, now I see what they're trying to go for, and maybe I'll be a little more excited about that. I mean, you know me, I've said in previous episodes, The Crow, I love that film a lot. So regardless, I'm going to go see it anyway. Yeah. But I'm kind of the outlier in the sense that I love films so much, I'm going to see them anyway. But there's a lot of people that, like, to that point, like, see things like this and it's like automatic pass, whether it's right, wrong, or indifferent.
Yeah, there's some that see a still and it just might be, I don't like how he looks, I'm not going to see the film. Like, they're not even waiting for any other information, trailers, anything else, because it is kind of polarizing. I get that they're probably wanting to do something different. The Crow does have an iconic look for so long now. Maybe they're trying to make sure that it's the Crow, but this is our Crow. But it is a very polarizing look to go from what we had to this look. And I'm going to give it the benefit of the doubt once see the trailer, see the movie, and see how it turns out. But it is interesting how they decided to start the marketing for that. Like we said in the last episode, we both really weren't even aware that it had been filmed, that it had started. And then all of a sudden, hey, Ballerina's moving year, The Crow's taking its place. Wait, The Crow is done filming?
Right.
And then we get that still, and then we get Bad Boys going up against it. So it's very weird movement around this film and around that beginning of June.
Yeah, and it's like you said, we're going to go see it regardless from our own opinions. We still advocate for you to do the same. Please, if you're even remotely interested in these stories, go to your theater, see the film, form your own opinions. Don't pay too much attention to what critics are saying or what other people are saying. Like, if you're interested in seeing it, please go see the film. Support these types of films being made, because, that's what keeps these films coming out, is your support. So please go see those films and form your own opinions.
Yeah, because especially the smaller films and those that may be one-offs or something else that are not the mainstream big budget over the top, if you don't go see them, they're not going to be made. And there's been some really good, small budget films and lower budget films, and there's been some bad, but that's how we kind of keep those still coming out to get those different views, because it's good for films and TV as well to have that variety of the large budget and the small budget. Because look at what, even though it's a big property with Godzilla -1 being such a low budget, you'd even almost call it a small indie film based off the budget it had. Was such a fantastic film that we got last year. So yeah, definitely support these films and go out. Like, if you have that interest, go on a cheap day. If you're still not sure about it, check it out. Know for certain if you don't like it or you do like it, because you could miss out on a lot of things if you just listen to the initial backlash on the internet for things. Because the look for The Crow, a lot of backlash, but we'll see how his performance takes over from that beginning shock of the aesthetic.
Yeah, it couldn't. I couldn't agree more. And I'm still, for Bill at least, I'm still gonna try to my best to disconnect how just crazy he looked as Pennywise, because it's obviously his most well-known role at this point. But moving into The Crow, like, man, I'm excited for sure.
So later on in the episode here, you're going to get our review for Dune Part 2, but we already have a little bit of news on Dune Part 3, which will be Dune Messiah. The script is nearly complete, and Hans Zimmer, even though he's been told to or asked to stop as he's feeling the inspiration, he's already started working on pieces for the score. So like the script's not done. They're not really talking like they're going to be moving very quickly to get the third film done. I think Denis has at least two movies he wants to do before he commits to doing the third Dune film, but I can't wait to see what they do, because the Dune books, there's 6 of the main by Frank, and then I think there's 23 altogether. But for most people with the Dune lore and the fandom, I do believe they fall within those first 3 books. So, and we also know that this is going to be the final film of this established Dune universe that Denis has done. So I'm really looking forward to seeing that, but it's probably not going to be till 2026, 2027, if I had to guess.
Yeah, I mean, Dune Part 1 came out at the end of 2021. This is the beginning of 2024 that we're getting into. It's about 2.5 years in between films coming out. If it takes another 2.5 years, and spoiler alert, getting into our film, we're very much looking forward to Part 3. Taking their time with it, I'm more than fine. Let them take a breather from it. Let it simmer a little bit, and then come back and give us this grand epic finale that I think they're really building to, based on what happens in Dune 2. Like, to be fair, I've not been big into the lore of the films myself previously, like before these started getting made. Like, I'd seen the original film that came out before, but the fact that I didn't know there were that many books, to be honest. And when I was researching, the backstory of everything for this, I was like, there's that many books? Like, that's insane. Like, I didn't think you could make it. Like, because I know a lot of people, the discourse around, like, Dune Part 1 being Part 1, they were like, well, do they really need more than one film to tell this type of story? But, I mean, with there being as many books as there are, like, they could probably go a lot longer if they wanted. But the fact that to your point, they're willing to wrap it up in the 3 biggest books of the series it's going to be a lot of fun to see what they do ultimately come up with. And I'm glad that, at least while the creative juices are going for Hans Zimmer, that he's already at least putting ideas together for the last one. Very much looking forward to it.
Yeah.
Sure. But to pivot into our last story that I wanted to talk about, it's kind of a hot button topic on the internet this week, so I kind of wanted to keep it topical. But in Glasgow, Scotland, there was this experience, if you want to call it that, I'm going to use quotes here, experience that was put together around Willy Wonka, right? So these people put like an AI prompt in to trick people into purchasing tickets, right? And
yeah, they made it look like it's this. It made it look like it's
over.
Willy Wonka's factory. Like,
right.
There's the beautiful, gorgeous, ornate design. Like, it's going to be this big, heavily detailed experience that you're going to feel like you're walking through Willy Wonka's chocolate factory. Yeah. And then they showed up to a mostly empty warehouse that had the most shoddy, pieced together decorations with like a floor standing mirror and things draped around, an Oompa Loompa that looks like it's at a meth station, and what looked like a Death Eater from Harry Potter popping up behind mirrors, like so scaring bad. Children. And like, the kids weren't even getting candy. They were getting like 2 jelly beans and a little bitty sip of lemonade for $44. Like, it was a ridiculous, insane type of thing that happened. They even had the people who showed up for it were calling the police because they felt like they had been hoodwinked and swindled so much, which is true. Like, the organizers wanted to call it a artistic interpretation that we did not convey properly to those. No, you were ripping people off, right, and you put together what you could on a dollar store budget. I don't even know if they have dollar store over there, but on the smallest itty bittiest budget you possibly could. They might have spent they probably spent less on the decorations and everything they did for this than they charge people for one single ticket to come to it.
Not surprising at all, right? But like it goes into the whole deeper conversation of AI marketing at that point. And they had AI like craft all of this marketing for them, and it did well enough to get people in the door, right? Like it worked, and these people were so ripped off. To your point, like you said, they called the cops, and like justifiably so, right? It's like the Willy Wonka Fire Festival at this point, right? That's what it feels like. But instead of getting pieces of bread and a water bottle, they got a sip of lemonade and some jelly beans. Like it's just absolutely ridiculous. It's completely shameful. You're bastardizing a property like Willy Wonka to make a couple bucks, but you don't even put forth half of an effort. Like this is just, it's laughably bad. And I feel terrible for the families that, took their time, paid their money, dragged their kids out to see this, and this is what they get. And I encourage everybody, like, if you haven't seen the story, go look it up. Look at the images that people were taking
you've got to see the images.
You have to see it. Like, we can't verbally do it justice. Like,
especially sad meth Oompa Loompa.
Right. It's absurd. And you hear these stories of, like, even the people that worked there that were, like, the hired actors didn't know what they were doing until, like, right when they got there, right?
Yeah, because the Oompa Loompa actress talked to the news about they had a script, but they completely abandoned it. And, like, it was a mess from every single angle, aspect you could possibly look at this train wreck. Complete and utter mess, and I hope these people are prevented from ever doing anything ever again.
Well, yeah, and I believe all the people are getting refunded their money and things of that nature, which thank God. But like, this is just laughably bad, right? It's criminal. It's downright criminal what these people were doing, and like they were just trying to make a quick buck. And good on these people for like just kind of standing their ground and saying, "No, this ain't it. We're not." Especially
immediately standing up, calling the police why they were there, like,
right?
Yeah, we're not standing for it.
Just good on him, man. But man, what a story, man. I wanted to talk about that just because it's there's so much talk nowadays about, are you getting the best value for your best entertainment value for your dollar now? And this is just a case of this being like the worst case scenario possible, where like $44 a ticket for a family of four is not cheap by any means. And you're like hoping to come see this, and yeah, you're not expecting a complete immersive type of experience like you would get the people who spent, like take like a Disney World where they put years and thought and a ton of money, a ton of resources into this type of experience. It's like this was put together, and like this couldn't have taken more than like an hour and a half to 2 hours to think up. And it's disgraceful, it's despicable, and it boils my blood because people work so hard for their money, and you really want to like put your money into things that are going to give you that valuable return to give these types of experiences. And this is just like the worst case of it being.
Yeah, and it absolutely shows the danger of AI with stuff. Like, I think AI can be a decent tool for creatives and designers and stuff to work with ideas or enhance a few things, but we're seeing it used for complete and absolute marketing sham to say that this is what we're going to do. And like, no, it's not. You look nothing like it. Like there's a lot of danger and things we need to really get hammered down when it comes to the use of AI imagery and AI in general with voice. With we've got some AI companies showing off that they can do full trailers, full scenes, full video with fake actors going all the way through. And like, there's definitely a dangerous area we're getting into with how people are being treated with AI.
And to kind of piggyback off that, I know we didn't like necessarily put it in our notes for this episode, but I remember reading a thing where Tyler Perry has come out and said that, he's kind of keeping an eye on that as well for his studio. Like, he's saying it's almost scary just how good this stuff is looking and how it could do. Cause like if studios really start to adopt this type of technology, and that was kind of discussion point in the recent strikes that, the writers and the actors have gone through. Like, if you're telling me these studios can just invest in AI and not pay, wages to actors and can just take, gives the whole name, image, and likeness conversation going again. But you could take these types of things and just make stuff without any crew or any people. It's like, it's kind of alarming.
Yeah.
Like, it's kind of alarming what that's going to do to, people's livelihoods and things of that nature. But just the fact that people are working and moving towards this it's a little cause for concern. You know what I'm saying?
Is there's a lawsuit that was just filed, and I think it was against Amazon, but I'm not sure who it was, that they're saying that they used AI voice to finish some of the dialogue for some of these projects while the strike was happening. And these actors, kind of caught on now and realize that I didn't do that dialogue.
Right.
And that they used AI to finish it without their knowledge or their consent or anything. Like, it's a very dangerous time with AI. There was another news article to kind of tie it all and wrap it up, of that they were running scenarios with AI to see how they would handle conflicts. Yeah. And 100% of the time, the AI launched nukes and went full escalation. Like, if you want Skynet, this is how you get Skynet. We don't want Skynet.
No.
Stop it.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a weird time when it comes to that. Like, I've created stuff with doing AI art, and I've used it to have a little fun with things, but to look at it as replacing voice actors or actual actors or doing whole films and stuff in AI, it's weird, and it gets into a dangerous time for the industry.
Yeah. And it's something to keep an eye on moving forward, obviously, because AI is not going anywhere. It's very much not. And there are a lot of benefits to it, but we'll see how people take that technology and, try to apply it in just about every aspect of life. Right. So it's one of those to constantly keep an eye on, but obviously we'll talk about that when it pertains to film and TV as we need to. But that was definitely something that I felt was very topical and very, current, that it needs to be in a bigger discussion about how film and TV is made, especially. But yeah. I mean, that to put a bow on the Willy Wonka thing, it was just completely absurd. And please go look that up if you haven't. It's just a crazy story. If you have any thoughts on it as well, when we drop these videos on our socials, please comment. Come to our Discord and talk to us about it as well. But it's definitely a topic worth talking about for sure.
Such an insane story. So moving into our TV breakdown for this week, we're going to start off with Masters of the Air episode 7. So we're getting close to the end now. So we've got 2 more episodes left after this one. This one, while a solid episode, it was kind of the setup episode. This was an episode that's mainly there to set up where we're going in the 8th and final 9th episode of the series. So there was some solid story points in here, but it definitely, for me, just felt clearly this is all set up. We're setting up to build up to the big thing. So it's not as good as the episode that preceded it, but it was still a solid episode overall.
I would agree with that. And to your point, it does feel like the setup. So we've got our group that's in the concentration,
in the POW
camp, not necessarily concentration camps. That's a terrible analogy, but the POW camps that they're in, you've got our group there. You've got the group that are currently still on the front lines fighting the wars and flying the missions. And how some people are dealing with that, especially with the constant influx of new people, and the more new people you bring, the less experience they have and the stress that comes with that. So they did a good job of playing that up, and how, the effect that it's having on people that are there. Like, even they celebrate one of the pilots making it through their 25th mission, which has been a theme around the entire series, where you make it to 25 missions, you go home. Well, they get to the point, and a little bit of a spoiler, where he gets it and he's starting to celebrate coming home, and they tell him, like, hey, upper management's upping the total now for you because our pilots are so, scarce at this point that it's not 25, it's 30 missions now. Or if you're already active over here, it may be 28 instead of 30. I'm just like, man, could you just imagine what these guys go through to celebrate a milestone like this? And we're like, sorry, you thought you were going home. We still need you. It's just like, oh my God, man.
You get to see so many pilots who were celebrating that, hey, we've only got a couple more to go and we get to go home, and their whole demeanor changed. Like, yeah, we went from having like 3 to go. Now we've got 5 to go. You're going to make it home from the war. I'm not. Like, they immediately, all those new runs we're just not going to live anymore. And we did get to see a little bit more rise of Rosie, of, getting up to his flight count and seeing that, I believe it was Black Monday that we got a little touch on. We didn't see all the action of it. Instead, we got to see kind of the aftermath of the injuries and people hurt, which was a very bloody, hard day that they had. But at the same time, they were cheering on Rosie for what he did to help bring home who came home. And we then got some decent story with the POW camps, so that was more kind of, like I said, that was more than anything the setup. This was really setting up that you're learning how life is in the POW camps, that they're scrounging around to find what they can to make makeshift radios so they can get news on what's going around. And we learn that there's escape attempts that are happening, and just exactly how the Germans are treating the soldiers, with their somewhat trying to treat them with respect, because they know that their own pilots and soldiers are being held by the U.S. and the Allies and everything. So they're not trying to be someone too harsh. They're getting mail, they're getting food, even though I think it's potatoes and turnips is basically their diet every single day. So we got some good story and back up there, but their story was a lot of setup to get us to a point at the end where, like, all right, we're seeing kind of what's going to happen next with them, that they're really building some tension. They're building that these guys are getting to the point they're feeling like, are we ever going to make it out of these camps?
Yeah. And it leads to that dichotomy of, is it worth trying to make the effort to escape? What kind of stuff can we put together to do it? And they do a good job of, to your point, setting that up for what, if you look ahead to the next episode that they do, where they do the trailer for the next episode at the end, like, you see just some interesting developments in that. And it looks like it's going to be a very action-packed episode. To look ahead a little bit, I'm super excited because they do tease the arrival of the Tuskegee Airmen, which is awesome. I've been very much looking forward to them. And they're finally showing up in the last 2 episodes. So that's an exciting development as well. They are building towards this, what appears to be a grand finale. Because I think we finally get a little bit of, in this episode, also a timeline of where they are in the war, too. Because to your point, we're just like, okay, what part of the war are they actually in? Are they in the beginning stages of the war? Are they in the middle of the war? And we find out that they're early part of 1944, I believe.
I think so.
Which is kind of about, if I'm getting my history right, about midway through the war at that point. So it's not quite the end of the war in 45, I believe, is when World War II ended. History buffs.
I was not expecting a history quiz today, Josh, so...
But
I don't want to go to school today, Mom.
We're calling it, we graduated, trust me. Just remembering at what point in the war that took place. But we do get a little bit of confirmation of when that's actually happening. So it was nice to put that in historical context as well. So, like you said, moving things along, setting it up for these last 2 episodes. We do get a little bit of a happy moment, and I wish they had played it a little more into how they got back. But some of the characters that had like a little side arc of, okay, they're trying to make their way from Belgium back to the camps, and they finally make it. Like, there's a little bit of a happy resolution for that. I wish they'd have spent a little more time telling them how they got from where they left them off to the time they made it back, but you do get some happy resolution for that as well. So it's still a harsh reality, but still had some feel-good moments mixed in too. So they do a good job of kind of touching on all the emotional points in this episode, I think.
Yeah, speaking of harsh reality, the episode kind of ends with, I wouldn't say call it a cliffhanger, but we get a big news drop of exactly what's going to be happening with the 100th, with the bombers and stuff, of how they're treating this war, that there's almost a little bit of a desperation that they're getting to, that they're going to run this mission that's going to put a lot of people at risk, and that's looking like what episode 8 is going to be a gigantic episode from what we saw in the preview and what we got dropped at the end of the episode, that we've got a ton of pilots going up in the air. We've got near suicide mission for some of them going, because they're going to be used as bait, basically.
Yeah, they literally use the word bait.
That's going to be interesting to see what happens in 8 and how they wrap it up in 9. But yeah, 8's looking like it could be one of the biggest episodes of the season.
100%. And they do share like a little bit of an up in the air fight scene where it just looks like hundreds and hundreds of planes just fighting in the air. So it's going to be epic. I'm very much looking forward to that. So we've only got 2 episodes left, and just really excited to see how they wrap everything up for sure.
Yep, so you can catch the first 7 on Apple TV Plus right now. Every Friday, and the next 2 Fridays, we'll have the final 2 episodes coming. And yeah, I'm really looking forward to see how they wrap the series up. It's been a great series. It's had its slow, low moments, but I think they've really crafted a well-rounded, great story, really great acting, and it's been a good ride to go on.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. So pivoting to our other TV show that we wanted to touch base on this week is FX and Hulu's Shogun, which premiered with 2 episodes this week. And I gotta say, man, like, you can watch the Hulu version, which is more of the straight Japanese dialogue with subtitles, versus the FX version that has a little bit of mix of English dubbing in with it as well. It's your own preference on which one to watch. I prefer the Hulu version myself, but this show is so good. I am hooked instantly. Like, they do a good job right out of the gate of just setting the table for what is happening, what's going on. You have this giant power struggle in Japan where these 5, this power is split amongst 5 different groups of people, and they're all kind of lobbying in their own way to kind of gain control in whatever circumstances they have to do to get that power. And it's just, this show is well worth the wait for me. I don't know how you feel about it.
Yeah, they wasted no time of getting into the story. Like, yeah, so you're getting, a few parallel stories all tied together. But yeah, you've got that power struggle of the 5, which it's more 4, and the 5th guy is, our main character is kind of just being treated so poorly because they know he's not going to go along with what they want to do, because he was more put in charge of the heir, that they're waiting for the heir to the empire here to come of age so that he can take over, while the other 4 of that 5 group that the power split amongst, like, no, we want the power for ourselves. So you got that great dynamic between them. There's actually a little bit more humor in it than I was expecting. Some of the jokes, especially between the husbands and wives and other things like that. But the acting is just so brilliant from the Japanese cast side. Like, it was weird that I don't remember ever seeing it seen anywhere, that we were going to have 2 different versions, as you mentioned, the dubbed and subbed version and English. So you've got 3 different ways that you're taking it in on FX, while Hulu is all subbed for the Japanese language, and of course you get the English languages. I think they're English, Portuguese, and more, but we're getting it all in English. But yeah, the show is so fantastic. The acting is brilliant. The visuals, it's a gorgeous, you were in the 1600s. You were there with them watching this. And as I mentioned, the other storyline is kind of dealing with the religious aspects outside of the political, because you've got the Portuguese who are basically telling the Japanese that they're basically the only other country that exists out there. So all the trade comes through us, through the Catholics, we're it. And then you have a group of Englishmen who show up on a Dutch ship who's throwing a wrench kind of in their plans. They're there to stop the Portuguese from having this absolute control of import, export in Japan. And we get to follow who's, our main character on that side with John Blackthorne
Blackthorne, yeah.
Blackthorne. Mm-hmm. But the dynamic of both storylines and bringing those worlds together has been fantastic to watch. And I was hooked from the get-go on just everything with this show.
Yeah, I agree. And I think it's smart for them to drop 2 episodes instead of 1, because to your point, episode 1 is really good at laying the groundwork of what's happening and setting the stakes and everything. And they do a brilliant job of that, but getting that immediate pivot to episode 2 where you get a little more development in the story, a little deeper into what's actually happening and how all the dynamics are playing out between all of these groups is such a smart move instead of just dropping one episode at a time, because I think they pair with each other very well to kind of keep that story moving, to kind of get that investment from people to buy into what's happening and hook them for the rest of the series, which it's going to be 10 episodes. We've got what's essentially 8 more weeks of episodes now that are going to be dropping every Tuesday, I believe. Is when they drop. But yeah, to your point, it's so well shot. It's beautiful. The cinematics are amazing. Wouldn't be shocked if it's up for Emmy contention at this point. And then that's just off of 2 episodes, by the way. Right. So that's not telling how the rest of the season is going to go. But the way they've laid the groundwork for the show for the next several episodes is amazing. Like it captured me like from the jump. Like it's so well shot. The acting is superb. I'm excited for the story that they're gonna tell here, because it's a really cool dynamic. It's a really cool setup of struggle for power mixed with religion, like you said, and just what people do who traditionally live under like an imperial type of rule, who get a little bit of a power taste, and now they're like, okay, we want that for ourselves, and we really don't want to give it back to this, this child when the child becomes of age to rule the entire country. Like, it's a really interesting power dynamic that they set up to, kind of battle it out for. But you do, to your point, have these outside international influences as well between the Portuguese and all the religious groups, and how John Blackthorne plays an integral part in a lot of these as well, and the dynamic between I'm struggling to remember the other main character, but Blackthorne and him kind of playing off of each other as well. Like, I don't really trust you, but I do trust you, and I want you to help me, and I'll help you, kind of thing. Cause
it's a really dynamic chess game that's already being shown of different pieces moving around that you can already see. We don't trust each other here. We don't trust this, but I'm going to use you for what I need, and we're going to move pieces around and do this board. And yeah, it does a great job of that intrigue of just like who is using who, what knowledge do they have. And I do think it's doing a good job of showing what that Japanese culture would have been like in that time, because we're getting a lot of stuff about honor. We had a character that spoke up because he felt like his lord was being disrespected, and he immediately offers to end his life and his family's bloodline because he spoke out of turn. Like it, and I feel a lot of the Japanese actors looking into, they feel like it was really well done to how they felt that their culture should be represented, even though like there are some extremities to it. Like, I spoke out of line. Well, it's time to end my entire bloodline. Like, that was crazy to see, but it's realistic to
absolutely
how they feel about honor. Like, honor is honor and family is like everything.
Yeah, it was wild to see. That's suffice to say, if you're interested in watching this show, it is violent. It does have strong language. It's not intended. It's rated TVMA, so it's not intended for the whole family to watch. But if you're interested in checking this out, I definitely cannot recommend it enough. It's so well done. I'm excited to see the next 8 episodes and how this plays out. And obviously, we'll continue to talk about it every week here. But
yeah, it was a must see before these first 2 episodes drop, and it's an absolute must see show to watch this year, because it's 2 episodes. I wouldn't call it perfection, but it's absolutely amazing. Like, it's near perfection. I don't know what they could have done better to introduce us into this world right away. Like, of course, it's based off a book that was written in the 70s. There was a miniseries that was done in the 80s. This is kind of taking both and doing their thing, but it is just so amazing and fantastic.
Yeah, I agree. And in my opinion, and I don't mean to say this with hyperbole, but the way it made me feel was kind of how I felt when I watched the first couple episodes of Game of Thrones. And I'm not saying it's going to be like to that level of pop culture prominence, maybe, and it may not be, but in terms of hooking me from the jump, it's got that grip on me like Game of Thrones did.
I was kind of disappointed that I didn't have more episodes to watch right away afterwards, because I watched the first one, I immediately went into the second one, and then it was I got to wait a week now before I can see anymore. Like, it definitely got its hooks in me.
Oh yeah. So we'll definitely be bringing that review each and every week. So I'm looking forward to keeping along with that for sure.
Now we're heading to our film review, which we've been waiting for this one for a while. Originally, it was supposed to come out last November. We're finally getting it now. We got to see Dune Part 2. So for those that may not know a whole lot about Dune, I think by now you should. Based off of a book series, there's already a mini series that was done in the 80s of it. This is the continuation of what Denis Villeneuve did with Dune Part 1. Now with Dune Part 2, we're continuing like immediately from where we left Paul Atreides and the group, and just this whole situation that's building on Arrakis. We pick up immediately after, and I've got to say, like, I love the visuals and the cinematics and everything of Dune Part 1, but just this was so gorgeously shot. Cinematography was unbelievable. Just the visuals that I'm picturing and remembering of this film was fantastic, but the acting, just so many parts of this was masterful filmmaking.
I couldn't agree more. And to your point, visually, it's absolutely stunning. They tell the story so well of this planet that they're all trying to take control of for the spice trade and everything like that, and just all the different power dynamics in play here. I know we've used power dynamics a lot, but it's kind of a similar thing, right? So you've got, Paul Atreides trying to lead this group of people who essentially view him as the savior of their people, even though he's not one of them, and him kind of really, like, for lack of a better term, I feel using these people to kind of get where he wants to go, while also help the people get to where they want to go too. But you've also got, Zendaya and her character, who is welcoming the help, but doesn't really view him as the Messiah that a lot of her other people grew. There's like a different factions among their people, that, like, there's the hardcore religious zealots that do view him as the Messiah, and the man can do no wrong. And there are some kind of funny moments that play off in that, where he's like, I'm not the Messiah. Well, you're so humble. Of course that's what the Messiah would say, like some little funny bits about that. And Zendaya is a part of the group to, I want to say, the South, who don't view him as the Messiah. Or
the North is the ones that are less religious, while the South are the heavier religious group that are kind of sunken and hidden away within these sandstorms that, anybody who comes to the planet is, afraid to go in that area because it's a very dangerous area. But that's in the South is more of the heavily religious, because, this film is very heavy on lore. There's a lot of dialogue. There's a lot of political. There's a lot of religious. And I mean, Dune has a very heavy lore to it, but I felt they did a masterful job of weaving in and out of that, showing multiple different sides to it all. We got even though we already had an incredibly stacked cast, we got several more who joined with Christopher Walken. You had Florence Pugh, you had Anya Taylor-Joy. There's so many more big actors and of course Austin Butler, looking very different than his Masters of the Air or Elvis counterpart, playing a character along with Dave Bautista's very white, pale, no hair, just doesn't give a crap about anybody's life. Like, I'm just gonna do whatever. Masterfully acted by all of those, and definitely creepy, kind of sadistic character that Austin Butler portrayed in that. Very
much so. And it's all about controlling the spice trade on the planet, right? So his group feels they have it under control. Paul Atreides is leading the group to kind of help take the planet back, take control of Arrakis at this point, and it's an almost 3-hour film that didn't really, in my opinion, feel like 3 hours, because there are some of those longer type films you go in and you're like, oh man, this is going to be a little bit of a slog to get through. Like, it's gonna overstay its welcome in parts that you could probably trim. I don't really feel like they could have trimmed too much out of this film, to be honest.
I could have sat there for another 30 or 40 minutes watching that film.
Yeah, and just to your point, the visuals, we cannot do it justice with words. The visuals in this film are absolutely stunning. It's stellar. I would be shocked, and I know we're going to talk about the Oscars coming up tonight, but next year at the Oscars, if it's not at least nominated for all the cinematography and audio and visual effects awards, then something's seriously wrong, because aesthetically, it's one of the better looking films I've ever seen.
Yeah, I think like even though it came out at the end of February here, that it is the absolute front runner for cinematography, score, and more. Like you're gonna have to work hard to beat this film in the visual categories, acting wise too. Like I think Timothy, I forget exactly how he pronounces his name because I think he is also one that he said he just goes with it, but not a lot of people actually says his name right. He gave one of his best performances. He was very commanding because you start off as he's still kind of that kid, but you're starting to see that, all right, I don't but build in or believe in this, that I'm the Messiah, but I want to help these people. I need help to get my revenge and stuff that I want for my family, but then dealing with his mom and what she's been doing and finding more out about what the emperor's plan was for his family. Like he did a good job of just building up this character to the point that we see him in a state at the end like, all right, this isn't exactly the Paul that we started this adventure with, and it's going into a really kind of crazy space with him, and even seeing him as this really insane soldier, like the moves and the fighting and all that he does. It's like, all right, and they're he's formidable as kind of a smaller guy, but you see that he's a very formidable character by the end.
Yeah, and there's a few scenes in particular where he gets to show off some of that fighting prowess, especially at the very end of the film, right? So with the fight scene with Austin Butler, not going to spoil that or anything, but there's a fight scene just between those two that is very well done, very well shot, and kind of a close quarters type of one-on-one fight that takes place in that. But to your point, he gets to the point now where he's kind of starting to believe his own hype at this point. You know what I mean? Like he keeps being told that he's not, but he is. And I think by the end, he kind of starts to buy his own hype a little bit and kind of embody that a little bit. And to your point with the third film being called Messiah, like you're gonna see that in what, not to spoil the books if you haven't read them, but see what kind of comes out of that for him and how this whole story is going to wrap up in what I'm assuming is the third and final film of this iteration of the story that they're telling. So just kind of see the resolution for that and like the, dynamics between all the characters that are left at the end of this film moving forward it's going to be really fun to see what they do with the next set of this for sure.
Yeah, Dune Part 2 is absolutely a film that you need to see in cinemas. You need to see it on the biggest screen, the best sound, the best visual, because it is such, like I said, masterful filmmaking. Beautifully shot, amazing special effects. Like, I'm trying to look back because I'm a graphic designer. There's times where, because I'm always looking at the finer details of things that I do, I'm seeing the flaws or the importance. I'm not a 3D designer. I'm not a modeler or anything, but I still kind of look at this, at even visual effects as design, and I'll see, well, this was a little rough. I can't really remember anything from this film that I could tell you didn't look practical. Like, you knew it was special effects and over the top, but it looked real. It looked practical. It looked amazing, especially, again, not giving anything away. There's a few sandworm sequences in this film that was just, you felt so in awe during those sequences because of the rumbling of the sound and the beauty of the visuals and the worms actually feeling real.
Yeah, the sound in the film as well was, they do such a good job of making you pay attention and like, oh, what is this? You kind of feel it. And to your point, like seeing it in theaters really helps with this. I've been told that the IMAX version of this film is amazing as well. And I would like to go see it in IMAX. Obviously we didn't go see it in IMAX, but if you have the opportunity to see it there, cannot recommend it enough, because even in the theater that we're in, they do a good job of, with the audio especially, of like you feel the rumble in the ground, like you feel like those types of things, and it's such an immersive experience. Like, to your point, we stayed engaged in the film for almost 3 hours, and it more than held our interest the entire time. It didn't really lull in places where we're just like, okay, like they're doing that. Like, we were invested in the entire story, and they do a good job of keeping your interest the entire time. So it's one of those that, if you can carve out a few hours, please, like, go see it. Like, I can't recommend it enough.
Yeah, this is an amazing feat of filmmaking that 100% deserves to be seen, and we cannot recommend going to see this movie enough. It's definitely going to be a contender movie of the year, and going to be one of it's. I hope I have other films this year that blow me away like this one does, but it's starting this year off on such a high note.
Absolutely. And it's one we can't recommend enough. So Dune Part 2 is in theaters right now. Please go take the time and check it out as well. And we would love to hear your take on the film as well. So please let us know what you think. Moving up to what's coming up this week now, because, Dune is out, but the calendar keeps rolling, right? So there's films coming out every week. This week we've got a horror film and an animated film. So kind of running the gamut of, different types of films for different types of people, right? So we've got Kung Fu Panda 4, which is the next installment of the Kung Fu Panda series starring Jack Black.
Always fun time.
Always a good time. I know you're taking your kids to see it. I'll be going to see it as well. Spoiler alert, we'll be reviewing that film next week on the podcast. But also Imaginary, which is the first big horror film of the year as well. So
just make sure you don't get that confused with John Krasinski's If,
Correct.
which is a family-friendly imaginary friend film, while Imaginary is a horror imaginary friend film. Like you have the kids moving Kung Fu Panda 4. Don't take them to Imaginary unless you want to scare them for a very long time.
Right. And both of these films are, for very different reasons, films that you and I are both looking forward to, and I believe we will see both and review both. But next week, definitely Kung Fu Panda 4, and I believe, spoiler alert, beyond that, we'll be doing Imaginary the following week. But we've also got some movies coming out on streaming. We've got Damsel starring Millie Bobby Brown. Easy for me to say. Now I'm messing up. You're rubbing off on me.
Everyone shall mispronounce everything from now on.
Anyway, Millie Bobby Brown from, obviously famous from Stranger Things and other things. She's got a Netflix film called Damsel that drops this week, as well as Ricky Stenicki, a comedy starring Zac Efron and John Cena that's going to be on Amazon Prime Video. And both are due out on March 8th of this week.
We got a lot of stuff coming out that's really like Kung Fu Panda 4 and Imaginary, vastly different films. Right. Damsel is a fantasy action film, while Ricky Stenicki with Zac Efron, John Cena is looks to be raunchy, bro comedy type of film. Like very different type of films that you could see this week. I'm looking forward to actually checking out all four of them.
Yeah, and if you go online and look at, in particular, John Cena's online Twitter activity, he is really leaning into the raunchiness of the comedy for his marketing. So
yeah, they created an OnlyFans for his character, and he's been promoting it, and it's definitely out there.
Yeah, it definitely leans towards adult humor for sure. Both, like you said, those are both films that I'm excited to, or things to check out on streaming that I'm definitely looking forward to watching for sure.
Yeah, for major digital releases this week, it's kind of down just to one main one, which is Argyle, is coming out to buy on demand on March 5th. It's a movie that we both really enjoyed, had a lot of fun with it, but it was one that was definitely polarizing. Not a lot of people got into just how silly, crazy, over the top it was, but I still feel if you let yourself go and know and enjoy that the movie knows, the actors know, the characters know how over the top it is, and you just let yourself go. I had such a great ride with that film, so I'm looking forward to being able to watch that again on digital this week.
Yeah, and go back in our archives to where we reviewed this episode as well to get our thoughts on it. So go back and check out the recent episodes if you haven't, and check out the episode on Argyle.
Yep. For TV releases this week, we have so Guy Ritchie's taking his Gentleman film and turning it into a spinoff series. We have that dropping on Netflix on March 7th, and then on March 10th we have the Oscars. So the next episode we'll probably touch base on what we feel of their hits and misses, or who we think got snubbed, and because it's this award season has kind of been a bit mixed. We've seen, between the different type of awards, we've had a few swaps with, I know Pedro and Kieran Culkin have been winning back and forth for their roles, but there's some, I really felt that the Iron Claw should have had nominations at all, and they didn't get anything.
Yep.
And so there's definitely some snubs that weren't even seen in the nominations, while others that we felt, and we still feel that Across the Spider-Verse should have been in there for
Agreed.
the overall best picture of the year and not just animated picture of the year. So it's going to be really interesting to see how the award season for films and wraps up here with the Oscars this year and who ends up winning.
Yep. And I believe in 2 weeks we'll be able to talk about all the winners and losers in that, and we'll definitely give you our opinions when we get to see the results and everything like that. So definitely looking forward to having that conversation. That's always a fun topic when it comes to films. Like who does everybody feel should have won, shouldn't have won? It's definitely a fun driver of conversation among people that love film as much as we do. So we're looking forward to sharing our thoughts with you on that for sure.
Yep.
And so that does it for this week's episode of We'll Bring the Popcorn. Coming up next week, we will be reviewing Shogun Episode 3, as well as Masters of the Air Episode 8, and a review of Kung Fu Panda 4. So a lot of fun stuff coming on the docket this week. A lot of stuff we're looking forward to watching and checking out. As always, we appreciate you taking the time to watch. Check us out on all of our social media platforms. Check us out on YouTube, wherever you're consuming this show. Thank you. Please spread the word, share the love. Tell us, how you feel about these episodes so far, how you enjoyed them. Share with your friends, share with your family, and check us out at willbringthepopcorn.com for all your latest news and info and links to all our socials as usual. Please join our Discord as well. We put the link to our Discord in all of our episodes as well. We would love to have you in there talking with us directly. We're both active in there, so if you want to come talk films, join our Discord too and talk to us directly. And I believe a little teaser for what's coming soon is potential merch. Is that right?
We're looking at launching merch this month. So if there's anything particular you want to see, we're looking at hats, we're looking at shirts, maybe a few other things. Maybe we'll have a giveaway coming up as well where you can get your hands on merch early. But we kind of got all that coming this month. So if you have anything that you feel like you want to see out of our merch, let us know. Drop it in the comments. Come to our Discord. Talk about it, and we should have some more news coming soon about merch.
Very exciting with that. So once again, thank you for taking the time to listen. I'm Josh, this is Brad, and we will see you next week.